In 1999, Motorola CEO Christopher Galvin received a report showing that radiation from mobile phones could break DNA strands in human blood cells. He sat on it. No press conference, no recall, no warning label. Nearly 100 million Americans kept phones pressed to their skulls every single day, and the man who ran the research that found the risk was fired for bringing it to him. Galvin never paid a fine, never testified under oath, never lost a night of sleep in public. So why has no one ever told you this? For most of the 90s, the cell phone industry sold you a clean story. Motorola was the brand that put a phone in your pocket and made it feel like magic, sleek, modern, safe. Behind that image, the industry funded its own safety watchdog wireless technology research, led by a public health scientist named Dr. George Carlo. $28.5 million, 6 years of studies. The message to the public was simple: trust us, we're checking. Here's the crack nobody saw. In early 1999, Carlo's team found something the industry never expected: lab results linking phone radiation to genetic damage and a possible tumor risk. Carlo did exactly what he was hired to do. He picked up the phone and called Motorola directly, then wrote to CEO Christopher Galvin himself in a memo dated May 1999, laying out the findings before anyone outside the room knew they existed. He wasn't a rogue whistleblower. He was the guy the industry paid to find the truth. And when he found it, the response wasn't investigation. It was silence. Motorola didn't deny the science in public, because in public, they never engaged with it at all. Instead, the WTR program's funding was quietly cut. Carlo says he was frozen out, his access to the research he'd led revoked, his warnings never making it into a single press release. Industry lobbyists kept telling regulators and reporters that no evidence linked phones to health risks. Technically true, if you make sure the evidence never leaves the building. The FCC's safety standards from 1996 stayed untouched. Nobody outside a small circle of executives ever got to weigh in on what Carlo found. But that's not even the part they really didn't want out, because Carlo didn't stay quiet. In 1999, he testified before Congress. He wrote a book laying out internal industry memos, and what he described wasn't a company that got bad news and panicked. It was a company that had been anticipating this exact scenario for years, running the science as a shield rather than a search for truth. The real scale here isn't one report. It's a decade where the industry funded $28.5 million in research specifically, so it could say, "We studied it," while making sure any result that hurt sales never reached a customer. The victims aren't a named group of patients with a lawsuit and a settlement check. They're the buyers who upgraded their phones every 2 years believing the silence meant safety, when the silence had been engineered. Here's the twist almost nobody clocks. The man positioned to actually stop this, Christopher Galvin, the CEO whose family name was on the building, didn't get punished when the story broke. He kept running Motorola for 4 more years. He left in 2003 with his reputation, his stock options, and his exit package intact, remembered in business coverage for restructuring the company, not for the memo sitting in his files. The person best positioned to protect 100 million customers profited from doing the opposite of protecting them. So why did nobody pay? Because the system was never built to catch this. The FCC accepted industry-funded safety science instead of running its own. Congress held hearings, asked hard questions, and then moved on to the next news cycle. There was no regulator with the authority to punish a company for underfunding inconvenient research, because funding your own watchdog was never illegal. It was just quiet. And quiet, it turns out, is the most effective legal defense a corporation can build. Remember that memo Carlo sent in May of 1999? It still exists. The findings inside it were never disproven. They were simply never followed up on, because the man who could have ordered the follow-up had already decided silence was cheaper than certainty. The FCC's phone radiation safety limits you're covered by right now were set in 1996. They have never been meaningfully updated since Carlo's warning reached Christopher Galvin's desk. The research that could tell you whether your phone is actually safe was built, funded, and buried before you ever heard the word genotoxic. So the next time you check your phone 100 times a day, ask yourself, who decided you didn't need to know what they already knew?